Bet.
My only mission in life is get away from the Adamites and the black devil helpers messing with their white life. Other religion and witches don't need tamper with cards. I'm living karate in the dark. I stay on my lahads, learn, speak, and read. And one day I'll teach it to those that want it and those that need it. The master teacher will be happy to see him, and he knows that we love him because we fight hard for his freedom. With love and unity, our shield is the key to the sanctuary of Yak Man. Shamus Kawun Pak Man. What does this mean? That means he has his own land, away from gossip and slander, evil, tripping and power. Where you need to be worried about the meteorite showers and them fireballs knocking down them walls. It's over, y'all. Me one Babylon fall. In other words, get out the way. And when Baba comes home, we'll build a bigger Tamaray. Visualize the master with diplomatic stats, flying back to Africa on a private jet, rocking a Rolex, holding doctrine classes, filled with laughter, teaching online, reaching the masses. It's a brand new day, it's a brand new chapter. We escape the gun clappers and the natural disasters, and those that matter us, slandering black devil bastards that thought they had us. I've been dreaming and scheming on leaving the land of demons. Residual is needed. The master teacher gave his tools when he dropped those jewels. The reformer and the warner of this day in time. Just look around and pay attention, you'll see the signs. So what you gonna do when there's a food shortage and no source of income to be supported? Tamaray was our safe zone. When the master come home, we'll have a new home.
Rahubat, Muisar, Rahubat. Okay, we're back. We are back. Another week. Another week of right knowledge. Another week of right knowledge. We have a lot to cover, as usual, and pretty cool. Pretty exciting. But yeah, let's see. What do we have here? Excuse me. Okay, so let's get started now. For those who do not know me, who might be new to our channel and new to our discussions, my name is Peti Sina Teptu Re'e, and I've been over a 30-year student teacher of the profound doctrine of the master teacher, known to us as Panabab Yananin, also known as Dr. Malakazi K. York, who has been teaching us our ancient culture we identify as Wu-Sabat, also known as Wu-Nawab, which stands for those who make decisions based on sound right reasonability, based on the principles of Ma'at, based on the wisdom of the Hutri. In essence, Wu-Sabat, Wu-Nawab is an ancient culture that our ancestors lived by. In essence, it's about being in harmony with natural nature. Our ancestors lived according to natural nature, as opposed to how we're living today. We're living according to unnatural nature. And we argue that the challenges that black people are dealing with all over the globe is due to the fact that we've gotten away from our original cultures that worked for us. And we have adopted foreign cultures for the last 6,000 years. And it has been the root of our self-destruction. And we argue that the bad conditions that black people are dealing with all over the globe will not change until we get back to a culture that is designed to work for us, till we get back to making decisions based on sound reasoning, being in harmony with nature once again. And I'm just one of many student teachers all over the world who have dedicated themselves to try to our best to re-educate our people about this ancient culture, Wu-Sabat. The master teacher has been trying to teach us for over 50 some odd years. It's been an uphill battle, but we have a job to do, and we're going to continue to do that. We have these question and answer classes every Tuesday. We always tell people to come out, check us out, invite your family, friends, to check out these discussions out. Ask questions pertaining to the subject matter that we talk about. The classes go from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. every Tuesday, so we definitely want to make that known. Also, I always like to stipulate we're not above making mistakes. So any kind of mistakes or errors that we may make, if you let us know, we'll do our best to address them as we can. So with that all being said, let's see. The next thing we like to talk about is as Sabians, we live by principles. We have core principles of Sabians. And guys, just so you know, we'll get to the questions in a few. For those who are asking questions, we've had several questions already, and we'll try to address the questions as best we can. And if for some reason I missed someone's question, do not hesitate to ask it again. I'm not ignoring you, but I got I have a whole format that I go through, so I kind of sometimes I need to be reminded. Just so you know. Now, on that note, we want to go over our core principles of Wu-Sabat. So for those who are familiar with it, you guys know this. All of our lectures are based around the core principles of our culture, of our doctrine. And for those who are new, it is imperative that you understand our core principles. Then that way you have an idea what our culture is about, why we do what we do, why we say what we say. It is imperative that people are familiar with that. Now, principle number 1 is called Ashak. And that stands for the power of love, or divine love. And that is the core principle of our culture, is Ashak, to be in harmony and tune with this divine love, this what we identify as the creation energy, right? Principle number And we did a lecture on that, just so you guys know. So I always want to remind people, we pretty much did lectures on majority of our principles. And Ashak, we definitely did a lecture on that. Now, principle number 2 is resurrection. And resurrection is about becoming goddesses and gods once again by learning to reopen our third eye. As our ancestors over 6,000 years ago, all of their third eyes were open. They were in harmony and tune with nature. And we've lost that science. We lost the knowledge on how to do that. And that's what we call resurrecting, to restore our ability to do that. And this is one of the things we're dedicated to educating our people about. And we did a discussion on that. So definitely check those lectures out. Principle number 3 is the wisdom of Dahutri and Ma'at. Dahutri stands for our divine mind, and Ma'at stands for order. We did lectures on that, so definitely check those out. Principle number 4 is relationships. As an African people, we always had tribal living. We lived of, for, and by each other. And we did a discussion on that, so I highly recommend you guys definitely checking that out. Principle number 5 is morphic resonance / matrix. Morphic resonance stands for sounds, tones, frequencies, vibrations. This is the essence of creation itself. Is based on morphic fields that create matrices, which are the manifestation of materials, right? Principle number 6 is soul and spirit. Your soul is your emotional force, and your spirit is your life force. We did lectures on that, so definitely check that out. Principle number 7 is Leviathan. Leviathan stands for moon culture, aka religion, aka Western culture. Leviathan is what we're at war with. We've been fighting Leviathan for the last 6,000 years. We did lectures on that, so definitely check that out. Plus, we have numerous of books on that subject matter. I highly recommend guys studying those books that we put out on that particular subject matter. Now, principle number 8 is health. The first key to health is a positive mind, right? And as melanated people, we need a lot of sunlight, right? The body is 70% water, so you need water. We recommend fasting at least once or twice a week. We recommend a herbal diet that Dr. Sabi talks about. It's an imperative that you exercise, right? Practice rhythmic breathing, meditation, concentration, prayer, and chanting. We always teach health is not just physical, but it's also spiritual. So in order to have complete health, you have to have both modalities, something that the Western world does not teach our people. But we as Africans, we understood that health was not just physical or material, but it was also spiritual in nature. Okay. And the last principle is Pa'ut. Pa'ut stands for the creative force itself. That's the terminology we use. It just means all, right? You can't add to all, because where would you get it from? You can't take from all, because where would you put it? It is all is an essence of existence, right? And the next principle is the smat, right? And the all is based on cycles, and we identify it as the smat. And the creation energy itself that all is of is called akak. Now it translates to ether. And so this is the essence of existence itself, guys. Now, for those who are students of Wu-Sabat, we have 3 primary goals. Goal number 1 is to raise the self. Goal number 2 is to fight Leviathan. And goal number 3 is to work to build Sabbatia. Now, as far as goal number 1, when we say raise the self, the first key of objective is to be born again, as Christians teach, meaning give up the old cultures that we learn here in the West and learn your new culture, Wu-Sabat, right? To live that culture. And the first key to living that culture, and the first thing to fixing, is to correct your name, right? We've been given foreign names, and we must learn to identify with our true birth names, okay, as Sabians. And next, how can I say, objective in raising the self is correcting your dress, right? As Sabians, we eventually must get ourselves out of the European Western clothing and get back to our culture clothing, right? Also learn to speak our language, Sabaic. Also, you must study our doctrine each and every day. That builds your sound right reasoning skills, guys. This is how you enhance your ability to make better decisions and better judgments. That's why we put out so much data, so much doctrine for that purpose. Also, you must practice and master our daily rituals what is designed to turn yourself inside out. This is how you open up your third eye, through learning to master those rituals, guys. I can't stress that enough. And you must always be positive. There's no real worthwhile goal will be achieved unless you maintain a positive mind, guys. Now, the second goal of a Sabian is to fight Leviathan. This includes working to free Panabab Yunanin, promoting Wu-Sabat, become a student teacher, and fight the 6 strongest weapons of Leviathan, which is ignorance, fear, ego, anger, our lusts and desires, and lies/deceptions. This is what we've been poisoned with, especially for the last 500 years, living under racism and white supremacy. We have to get away from the culture of Leviathan, guys. And then the last goal is to work to build Sabbatia. We must work to support each other in business. We help each other reach positive goals. We help to build our culture. We must set up a landing zone for Panatharu in Africa, which means we need land in Africa that would be supported by an African government, guys. So we have to get our own land. This is the only way we really can live our own culture, right? And Ashuk is the key to accomplish all our goals. Now, what does it mean to be a Sabian? 1, a Sabian is someone who is thoughtful and cares, someone who is helpful and honest, someone who is responsible and hardworking, someone who demands justice and honorable, someone who is righteous and humble, someone who is positive and cheerful, someone who is loving and peaceful, someone who is kind and considerate, and someone who is neat, clean, and orderly. Now, our purpose. As Sabians, our whole objective here is to liberate ourselves from adverse forces. The way we go about it is, number 1, you must take action each and every day to free yourself of 6 ether spirits inside and out, which includes black people who are possessed by these spirit forces, guys. Number 2, acknowledge and fight 6 ether from promoting capitalism, the gay agenda, miscegenation, the so-called equality of the races, and racism and white supremacy. And 3, learn, live by, and promote the laws/rules of natural nature. Okay? So this is what we are working to liberate ourselves from and get ourselves in tune with. Now, word of advice. Do not judge this doctrine by watching the behavior of Panabab Yunanin nor his students. Judge this doctrine by the effectiveness of the information, aka affirmation, that you personally put to practical use. This doctrine is based on self-authentication. Now, know that we are not preachers but teachers who are dedicated to answering questions until there is a meeting of the minds between the teacher and the student, who then can work in unity, which is the only solution to our problems. Okay? All right, now, with all that being said, before we get started with our lesson, we go through our prayer system. We definitely say a prayer, which is a part of our rituals, right? Our culture is about spiritual development, and prayer is a form of communicating with your spiritual counterpart, your spiritual nature, which we call your higher self, as well as your ancestors who exist on higher realms, higher dimensions. These are one of the things we try to bring our people back to that awareness. As Africans, we always acknowledge our ancestors who existed on higher dimensions, guys. And prayer is a way of communicating with them. It is a way of us, like a mental conditioning for our own minds, for our own edification. Okay? So with that being said, we'll start. Bade Kalal Namasat Wufakor Aman Kasemun Shalalapuut Panen Safa Kawun Pa Sawa Wupatara Z Kawuna Nazula Laha Enkum Manas Sabat Wu Sa'a Aman Hade En Shafe'un Manan Salafu Wunataru Aju Laye Nafasu Kum Afuk Shane Kawun Kuma Pasawa Wupatara. This book is the truth in the way. It was sent down to you all from Sabat Wu-Sabat, star constellation, as a guidance and a healing. From your ancestors and overseers, return to your own. Accept what is yours, the truth in the way. And nun tawa ankum lahe panan shafei un wu alaj. And nun tawa ankum lahe nasui nun. En nun tawa enkum lehe ashuk. Enkum ata salafu nun. En nun ata khara'ukum. En nun talub nasa kuma. En nun talub nasa kuma. En so nun sayim nataru. En so nun salafu nun. En nun ata muspa'u. We thank you all for this healing and cure. We thank you all for not forgetting us. We thank you all for Ashuk. You are our ancestors. We are your children. We seek your help. We seek your help. Help us, divine overseers. Help us, our ancestors. We are Musba'u. Anun. Atun. Atun. Amun. All right, Jedna 4. Okay. Today's discussion is soul people versus spirit people. Okay. And this discussion will be centered around our Patadox. Two particular scrolls the master teacher has written. And the first scroll that we're gonna go over is called Soul, Soul, Spirit, Spirit. And then the next scroll that we're gonna go into is called the Prism. Okay, and so in reading these two particular scrolls, it's designed to address the question that we have, or the name of the class, right, which is soul people versus spirit people. And this is a very important subject matter and topic for you guys to get. Now, for those who hopefully have these scrolls, definitely study them. And if you don't, definitely try to get access to the scrolls. It's highly important, as I always talk about, that our classes, our lectures are based around the many books that we have put out. And so they help as a companion. All of our lectures are designed to help as a companion. So it's very difficult to comprehend totally our lectures without really studying the books, the doctrine itself. Okay, because again, our lectures are based around what we teach in the books. So I definitely, need to make that clear. All right. Now, with all that being said, we're gonna get started. In fact, give me 1 second. One second, guys. All right, I'm back. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so we're gonna start with this particular scroll called Soul, Soul, and Spirit, Spirit. And so I'll read through it and then try to do commentary as I go through the particular scroll. All right. The revelations to the Nawapians, Patadak, and that Patadak stands for the way. Okay, and so the title is Soul, Soul, Spirit, Spirit. Lehekum, my beloved, Nuwap-u Khradu, Nawapian children. You ask about soul and spirit. Do you know and remember all I said to you of them, and you as females and males? Nawapians, I told you a Ba, and that stands for soul, and Rawa, that also means soul. And I spoke to you about Ka'a, which means spirit, and Nafash, which also means spirit, and about Akak, and that stands for your etheric being, and Khu, which is your oversoul. You ask again about these parts of your existence. So number 1, you have Pa Khu, which is your over being, your oversoul. And 2, you have Pa Akak, and that's the etheric essence of you, the etheric being. And then you have 3, Pa Ba'a, and that's the creative expression being of you. And then you have Pa Rawa, and that stands for the breath of the living being, the breath of life. Then you have Pa Ka'a, and that stands for the exoplasmic being. And then you have Pa Nafash, and that stands for the living being. And then you have Pa Khatat, and that represents your physical body. Pa Khabat'u, which means demigods, that are children, pa-natharu, called angelic beings, both agreeable and disagreeable. Some were cast out from above and became known as Nephilims. If you refer to the Bibles, guys, it talks about Nephilims. Genesis chapter 6. It stands for falling ones. They call them the Elohim in the Bible and Alihat or in the Quran. The agreeable ones are called Malakum and the disagreeable ones are called Molech. They come in three groups. You have Malkun and Moloch and Melech. The two most known are the disagreeable ones called the cherubim, and the agreeable ones are called the seraphim. Now the Sumerians called them Anunnaki. The Chaldeans called them Anakim and Raphim. They are tribes also in Islamic faith of the Quran. They call them jinn, who can be in human form both as males and females. Some came down to Pa-Taha, the planet Earth, called sons of God, and had sex with human women. Okay, these beings you're talking about came, and the Bible talks about these beings, in essence, ETs, come to the planet Earth, and they basically started to have sexual relationships with the mortal females who were on the planet, guys. Very important information that people need to know. Now it goes on to say the results were wicked offspring or demigods, being half divine and half human. Most turned out to be demon persons of greed and lust and pre-natural cruelty. These are born by mixing genetics of deities with the genetics of humans. Both males and females are Khabatu and are linked to the evil race in Earth. So they come in all races, yet serve the Ka'anu, the Canaanite, in actions and deeds. The original fallen ones, the Moloch, the cherubim, Huhi. As you see, my children, you are many beings as the supreme being, all in one. You are unique. And being is both etheric and atomic, physical and both physical, that is art, which stands for no thing, or not, which stands for no thing, and art, which stands for a thing. Okay, like your atomic structure, your physical body is atomic, and that represents the thing, and which is art, and not is your subatomic, your spirit, your soul, right? And that stands for not. Just so y'all guys are clear on that. And then it goes on to say, or the sum of a thing, and without sum, amount, total, arithmetical, problem, summary, weight, volume, density, and matter. It's called Kawun, which is to exist. So Mukwenu, beings can exist as in be found, yet not begin, or starts at hydrogen, which comes up as hydrodynamics or hydrostatics or hydrokinetics or hydroelectrics. So for years, the Kananu, the Canaanites, misinformed the world with the lie that all existence comes down to the lightest atom, which or whom they call the hydrogen atom. Okay? Now they have been forced by Hakak, which stands for actual facts, to rethink their lie by accepting that there exists subatomic beings. Again, they say subatomic matter and even antimatter. So before hydrogen was, being is, or existence existed before hydrogen, guys. And from hydrogen came, or she birthed, all elements of matter and gas and liquids. Yet they all exist. They are art. They all have substance, essence, and it really means substantial, or sub, which is below, or downward, under, and substantial, solid, or important. Now, substantiate, bring evidence for substantiation. And the male's physical body becomes substantial, or as antimatter. The male is subtle and is very subtle in making. The female is submit or sublime or inspiring, awe, and in time she became the subordinate being as she is a housewife, a girlfriend, or sexual partner, became subservient. Now, Nuwapians, you wish to know why and how has she given up and in to men? So I return you to the meanings as I often do, for in meanings you find reason. So let you both female and male reason together. First we look at Pa-Hu, which is your oversoul or overbeing, pre-existing being of Mentu. And then we look at Pa-Akak, which is the etheric being or the creative expression, which is linked to all as an energy double. Then Pa-Akak vibrates from 1 through 10 levels, and 10 is only a repeat of the first level on higher dimensions. 10 is in fact 1 again. And then we look at Pa-Ba'a, called the soul, the creative expression of the emotional being. And there is a counter soul called in our language Pa-Rawa, also called the soul. Yet it is breath or wind and affects the body's actions. It ignites with the first human breath of air or the mixture of gases, ether, one breathes, the atmosphere, or breath, right? So that's the breath of life you read about in the Bible when it says that God breathed into man the breath of life and man became a living soul. We all breathe to live, and that's called Rawa, your soul force, okay? That's it. That's one form of the soul, guys, just so you know. Then you have, and then we look at Pa-Ka'a, which stands for the spirit. Ghost plasma comes into being at the moment of sperm and ovum contact or spermatozoa fertilizing the octave or egg. The sperm head is the spark. It thinks, it travels in the liquid or fluids in the womb through the heat to survive and reach its destiny. So there is mental activity in the male sperm from the brain of the male and or from being the oversoul called synapses or brain synapses. It's nutat or what we call brain news, right? So guys, for those who don't know, before male ejaculates, the sperm travels up the spinal column to the crown, to the head, and this is where the sperm receives a spark of energy, of life. And then it comes back down and ejaculates. That's how it works for those who are aware of that. Now it goes on to say, the thinking process starts in the two testicles. Pa-Chashetui creates Pa-Manan, the sperm or the semen, the liquid male seed. This is divine mind at work. Yet the female holds the egg that must be fertilized, making her Mother Earth, physical nature, as in fertility, fertile, fruitful, producing abundantly, fertility, fertilized, or pure earth, which is called fertilizer. So in fact, women do not or did not need the male. She, like many other creatures, can create a daughter cell inside, equipped to form her own. This act of childbirth can be performed without the male, as she used to be able to do before she fell in love with her own son, the male, and replaced the mother role for a role as a mate. This process by which reproduction happens is the Bartholomew gland within a woman, which is located on both sides of the vaginal orifices that secretes a lubricating mucus. It is equivalent to the bolourethral glands in the male, which is located below the prostrate, and it discharges a component of the seminal fluid into the uterus. The prostrate secretes a thin milky fluid with a characteristic odor. Now the fluid constitutes the greater part of the thinking, acting semen, swimming fluids that travel by its own will in completion with 7.7 million other mukwano or beings. Those are sperm cells they're talking about. So it has mind or mind linked to the mental, melts down to fluid from energy to the brain synapses, the total being and thinking, mel, nutat or newts. This is the life of the living spermatozoa. And a woman was capable of reproducing seminal fluids on their own eternally without the male's ejaculation in her womb. Nuopians, just as you see that once a female has a male sexual partner over time, they begin to act alike, even in some cases look alike. That is because a woman is a shapeshifter controlled by her 8 telomeres in her chromosomes, being the mammal. Just as if a group of women live together, eventually their monthly cycles can line up or change to sync up at the same time during each month. And it has been confirmed that when a woman is ovulating, that is when she starts to release eggs from her ovaries, that she physically shapeshifts on the outside to attract the male donor, even making herself younger inside out and outside in, to donate his sperm to be more sexually attractive. The female actually transforms herself, gives herself renewed youth by her telomeres at the top of her XX chromosomes. The male cannot do this. He has only 7 tips of his chromosomes, which is the XY. He lost his mafkuzat. So as it is plain to see, females can transform the inner and outer being and appearance or rejuvenate. So she in fact changes to become what a male wants. This is how she lost her power over males. And today it's called devotion or loyalty, being a good wife or mate. In so doing, she submits her goddessship and in time transforms into being subservient. Excuse me. And become dependent and will follow the male because her mother received her soul from her father by submitting to males. And now she gets her soul from her male partner. The more she has, the weaker she becomes. She translates it in her mind as, I don't want to be alone, or I want someone who loves me, who needs me. This is not the working of a mother or a matriarch. This is also a counterpart, there is also a counterpart to the Ka'a spirit called Nefas or spirituality. And it is the essential character agenda. Guys, just to build on what we just read or about the female, right? Is very imperative. One of the things we try to make it clear that our women only supposed to have one partner, one sexual partner. The more male partner she takes on all of these different spirit forces, and that weakens her. This is how females lost their ability, because as Africans, we had a matriarchal society where the females were rulers, right? And we're trying to explain how the woman lost her power, and the way she lost her power is submitting to males and started taking on more than one male, and this is how she lost her power. So, just for you guys to know. But let me keep going. So it goes on to say, there is also a counterpart to Ka'a, which is your spirit, called the Nefas, which is your spirit personality. And it is essential character or gender. It is formed after birth, and it grows with each person as they develop their own ways. The Nefas can destroy you by moods, depression, or actions. Your personality affects your whole being inside and out, outside in. So there are 2 souls and 2 spirits linked to the Khatat, the physical body. Now, lest you forget, Nuopians, that both genders are mistakenly called mammals, warm-blooded animal. Yet mammals breastfeed their young. They carry their young on the inside. So in fact, that would be the female, the woman, the mother. She needs to shapeshift into another person, a child of youth, out of whichever age, so she uses her chromosomes to regress in age. This is why you say she looks fresh and better while pregnant. Now, the male human being, he does not do these things. So he in fact is not really a mammal by those definitions. The male or man or father does not breastfeed, nor does he carry the fetus in his womb. So in fact, he is not a mammal by that. The female, like all other animals, is the creator of nature's rules. And like rules and regulations, they can change on their own, even mutate. She, as a mammal, was first, yet, as all animals, she has a living spirit. The male also has a living spirit. He is also in flesh, an animal. The male or men are mental. The women or women are physical. Man is not greater than woman, and woman is not greater than man. Both are equal, or kharadu, children of Panatharu. Both are formed out of the water or liquid, as you read in their Bible. Refer to Job chapter 26, verse 5. It talks about dead things are formed from under the waters, and the inhabitants thereof. This is the King James Version. And if you read the Quran 25:54, and it says, and he it is who created your flesh from water. Then he made a lineage for him and a relationship, and your Lord was powerful. Just as in Wu-Sabat, the Agdag or Pa-Khamemu of the chaotic waters, so you have Nuntat and Nun. This is in our Egyptian culture. We taught the first primordial beings. They're called the Kamunu. And the first ones was called Nuntat, which is the female principle of creation, and Nun, the masculine principle. And then it goes and says, so when you see these Safa'at, these hieroglyphics, they are symbolic and have meaning. Nuntat is a snake being, and it represents the female. And Nun is a frog being, as male, symbolic of sperm cells and tadpole. And from the waters is the three water symbols, because you live in the water in the womb for 3 gestations. Then you have 3 nubols, represent the 3 stages of metamorphosis while in the womb. This is in the Egyptian hieroglyphs for those who don't know, which explains our creation, right, and our origins. So he goes on to say, and so just so you know, they said that our original ancestors, the females, represented snake in not that they were snakes, but the attributes of a snake, and the males represented frogs, so the attributes of a frog, right? Our ancestors. So in creation, existence came into being through pairs, a duality, male and female principles, is what it was trying to teach. Okay. Unlike in just to make the distinction, in European religions, they teach that the man was first and then the female comes from the man, right? But that's not how nature operates. Nature creates in gender, female and male energies of existence, right? This is how nature operates. And our ancestors identified this and taught these principles. Okay? So now we go on to say, let's see. So you have a snake as a tadpole with a tail, on to a gray to a humanoid. So those are the 3 stages in the womb, right? You start off as a tadpole, the sperm cell, right? And it turns into a little gray. If you look at the first gestations in the womb, the second gestations in the womb of a little fetus, it resembles a gray alien. And then it comes out as a humanoid, right? And after 9 months, it goes on to say, it says, and the loaf of baked bread, symbols of the feminine, called tatat. The demand blood or flesh is the bread of physical life. Now, this was also in the hieroglyphics called a tatat, and it represented a loaf of bread, but it was symbolic of pregnancy, right? As bread rises in the oven, and that was with the womb, the stomach of the mother, it rises. So, and the child was baking inside the oven of the womb. So that these were symbolisms in the hieroglyphics, guys, just so you know. Okay, so let's go on to say. So baked in her oven, the womb, or we call pa raham. The sperm mentally generates genetic affirmation, and the ovum physically generates genetic information. The male came from Sa'at, right, which is the Orion star constellation. So the black man, his original spirit force, we originally came from what they call the Orion star constellation, but the correct pronunciation is called Sa'at. And the female came from Sabat, which is Cyrus. So the black woman came from originally from Cyrus star constellation. And the master teacher made it clear, he said the women, females rule the Cyrus star constellation or Sabat, and the males rule Sa'at. Okay, to this very day. It goes on to say, now for the seeding of Pa Kawak Taha, the planet Earth, the then water or blue planet. So it is the celestial male and it's the terrestrial female. The male represents celestial beings and the female represents terrestrial beings because she's Mother Earth. Now, gender is ingenuous, that is clever at contriving ingenuity, skill in planning, and came long after being. It is based on the female is ingenuine or artless, young girl, ingenuous or innocence, to be feminine or masculine, both physically female and mentally male, and those first formed or muknashtat or hermaphrodites and muknash hemorphodites, right? Our original ancestors were hermaphrodites and hemorphodites, for those who do not know that, guys. So in nature, there exists no extremes. First, there exists neuter or neutral or neutron, unchanged particle of atom and or cell. So none the wiser. You are equal in your responsibilities or your ability to respond. Responsibility on earth. Both are incarnations, right? As male and females, we're both incarnated onto this planet, guys. Yet the mother is the shapeshifter, and once she loved the male, spent time with him too much, she changed to eat what he wants, to have sex when he wants, to dress as he pleases of her, to exchange more of his fluids than her or he or of hers. She began to shapeshift. For each male she was with, after the fourth male, his fluids overpowered hers. She lost her power and submitted. As you were told in the old school, read their Bible book, and from Numbers, the book of Numbers, chapter 30 verses. Read from verse 1 to 16. It speaks about spirit and soul and woman. Right now, first her father, then her husband, then her sons. Once the goddess fell in love with a god, both physically and mentally, she is given over her own will, her soul. The male or many males rule her inside out, outside in. These are the spirits. Every time a female takes on a new sexual male partner, she's taking on all his male spirits, and it dominates the female. The female have to realize they're internal creatures, they're internal beings, right? And they can't do that. Our women, and unfortunately, they live in this European culture that's teaching them to behave like that, to go from God to God to God. And they don't realize those are spiritual taboos that we don't supposed to do. That specifically our women are supposed to do, guys. Okay, we go on to say, all animals have what is needed to transfer life to living. The matrix or matron or matriarch. The female are rulers of the physical world, for she has the mitochondrial DNA needed to transfer genes and gender, and is affected by this terrestrial world by her emotions, while she carries or builds or creates, fashions and forms the child in her womb. Yet the male is linked to Pa-Hu, the oversoul, which is linked to the mental. Look at the word men and Tao, or mental. It existed before some, or weight, or atoms and cells. And says, look at this, Nawapian. So he gives a breakdown between non-mammals and versus mammals, guys. The male being a non-mammal and the female being a mammal because she breastfeeds. Okay, and he was trying to educate us about us as men are in essence celestial beings. We're incarnated onto the planet. That's why the male body is not developed. It's not developed as a female. A female has the perfect genetics for the planet Earth. Okay, because this, how can I say, the female is connected more terrestrial to the planet than the male is. Then it goes on to say, once a female submits to a male sexually or otherwise, she begins to transform for him, some of it good if he is a good man. He will receive his manhood from a woman, his first sexual interaction, so he seeks to rule as many as he can from the first on. The Sayetat, the woman, transforms him from a boy or child to a man. He takes control of their lives. She learns to follow him and surrender her own outer choices for his. As a mudatat, a mother, she is born by her very nature to serve her offspring. And all males are in fact her offspring. So she seeks to please him, and in so doing, gave her soul to him or to them. Once she has had over 4 different men sexually or drink of their bodily fluids, it's very hard to regain her goddessship. Yet, it can be done by rituals and rites. So, the way the female has to resurrect, she has to override all those spirit forces from the different male partners that she's dealt with. Okay? Because she's a terrestrial being, she's a highly emotional being, and she's connected to the planet. And so, our women is sacred. That's why the disagreeable one knew that if you corrupt the female, you have the nation, because the female gives birth to the nation. And so if the female is corrupted sexually, then obviously the children would be corrupted sexually, because they're going to inherit those spirit forces from the female. So it's very important to understand, right, the difference between the male and the female and what happened to the female. Okay? And we're dealing with, our soul force. And so versus the spirit force, I should say. But let's keep going. Okay, so that was that particular lesson. Hey, Raul back, Jacob. Good to see you, man. All right, so now we're going to move on to the next part to that, and it's called the Prism. Okay. And it's somewhat a continuation of the other discussion, but let's keep going. So it says, Lehekum Nawab my beloved children of life and living, children of life of Pa Ra'e, the sun, the life-giving force of this planet. Nawab children of Wu Nawab, know yourself physically and spiritually. Know your breath of life, or known as your breath of life. What is your physical life, and can it be eternal in the flesh? First, my children, let me speak of birth and the living being in relation to our formation, light and sound. You know of this cycle of colors. The Kamem Nawar, the black light, is seen as a glowing violet color, or chaotic lights that exist on the physical realm emerge from the pale white light in creation, from peace to chaos. Called the rays or lights become separated by a washar or a prism. Guys, for those who are not familiar with a prism, it's like a looks like a crystal almost, and it's what scientists use, that you shine light through a prism, and it separates into a rainbow spectrum of lights, because within full spectrum light you have different frequencies of light, and you can use a prism to separate them, just so you know. Now, a prism is a solid whose 2 ends are similar, equal, or parallel rectangular figures, and whose sides are parallelograms. Transparent body of this form, usually with triangular ends by which light can be reflected. A prismatic or prism shape of color is produced or refraction through a prism, producing a rainbow-like effect, right? Which is what the prism does. When you shine light through it, it separates the light spectrum, so people can see the different frequencies of light. Goes on to say, a rainbow is an arc of prismatic colors formed in the sky by the sun's rays. Now, rays are single lines or narrow beams of light, heat, or any of a set of radiating lines. To radiate is to emit rays, radiation, transmission of heat and or light, radiance, brightness, chaos, disorder, confusion, state of the universe after physical creation by the birth of lights, white, brightness, the prism. Each color vibrates on its own and it is unique properties in creation. The violet ray is the secret of alchemy or transformation or transmutation or metamorphosis, as a child does in the womb. It means change or growth. The Arabic word is alchemia, is from the ancient Egyptian word hamat, which means black. In Arabic is ham. In Hebrew it is ham. Both is black, as in Ham, son of Noah, or Nun, in their religion, taken from Egypt, and the word khalas, which stands for placenta. Now, khalas is an organ connecting the mother, parent, with the transforming mammal in the womb, the physical lifeline. Now, the violet children are born of the black light. The amber children are born of the white light. Violet is the highest frequency. It acts on matter and substance of lower frequencies. And being energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed from one state to another. And thoughts also are triggered by emotions or energy in motion. So in fact, all energy ever used, which includes thoughts and emotional energy, exists eternally. In quantum, facts, matter is a form of energy. Atoms aren't material substance in all. They are merely small packets, orbs of energy. Even when an electron is described as a particle, when its wave function has collapsed, it remains a form of energy. This energy, of which everything is composed, is in the form of waves that can be encoded with information from information, just as cells. These waves have an infinite capacity for receiving information as black and information as white. Is limited to this realm. The orbs of their birth at 6 months in the womb departs at physical death of white people, or the Kakasu, as little white orbs or flames. Guys, and so he's talking about the universe itself is made of these energies, these subatomic particles. And these energies represents information or knowledge, or what we call information. And we have the ability to process that through our minds, right? So the information turns into information when you learn how to harness this energy into the body. This is one of the reasons why we teach meditation. This is how one increases their intelligence, their consciousness. It's through meditation, where you're able to harness more energy into the body, or what we call sakhem. Okay, and this is what it expands one's consciousness. And again, I can't stress it enough. This is why we stress so much for people to learn concentration exercises and learn meditation exercises. This is how you expand your thought pattern, your mind, and your brain synapses would flow a lot more effectively once you learn to do this. Okay, provided you eat right and provided you don't have negative thoughts, because remember, understand that negativity cuts the flow. Negativity cuts the flow of affirmation, because negativity is a certain frequency, is a vibration, right? And it disconnects you from the celestial realms, guys. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to say, so in fact, all the energy that has ever been used remains encoded with unique individual rays of light in the violet light or the black light, on to higher dimensional frequencies linked to the spirit, which is or linked to the Ba, the soul, which is the Ba, to soul, on Ka, which is the spirit, to ether, which is the Akak, with golden children, the Nagato. So as Nagato or African or black people, we have a soul force, we have a spirit force, and we have our etheric essence, right? We have our etheric essence, what we call akak. We're going to say Nagato have their own frequency signature or tone or vibration. That's important to know that, guys. We have our own signature or frequency or tone or vibration as a race of people. We're connected to the same frequencies. Each race have its own unique morphic field. That's why we talk about that word, morphic resonance. Each race, every species has its own morphic resonant frequency, guys. Know that. Now we go on to say, so Nagato are living beings, are packets of quantum energy as a part of the entire, all constantly exchanging information to information with the inexhaustible energy of Pa'ut, all expanding. So Master explained it as Nagato, as Melanite children, we're constantly harnessing energy into our bodies, which is information. That unfortunately we haven't learned how to transform that into information to expand our consciousness, which is what the Master Teacher has been trying to teach us, which is, again, the purpose of all the rituals that we talk about. But let's keep going. He says, it's also called the 0-point field. That's what scientists call it. Scientists call ether, they also call it the quantum field force. So if you study today's science, they don't use ether anymore. They'll use terms like the 0-point field, 0-point energy, or actually they'll say quantum field force. They'll use that terminology. Okay, so let's keep going. Roll back, Moisar, roll back, CeeLo. Let's see where we at now. Okay, it's also called 0-point field, and it is described as an ocean of microscopic vibrations in the space or ether, a huge reservoir of mental to physical energy. So, like subatomic particles, influence all other particles instantaneously over time and space. So, like all colors, violet is a wave, and waves can alter other waves through resonance. Violet is composed of 9 levels of colors, from noon, which is purple, to atum, which is blue. So we have light and sound. Light has been made clear. Now look at sound. Light is protons, and sound is phonons, and have a direct influence on matter and cells, even on the DNA. So voices of other races, words, songs, chants can affect your DNA. And being Nagato vibrate the highest, all other can only do you harm. Guys, this is very important to understand, because we as Africans, we have a certain vibrational frequency. We have a certain distinct morphic field. Now, when we start to interface with other races, each race has their own unique morphic field. Those fields interlap. And it will alter your field, especially if you try to become a part of a dominant culture, like what's going on here in the United States, right? We're living European culture, and they're emitting their morphic field, their morphic resonance, the Mukasu, right, as a race. And by us adapting it and learning that language, learning their tones, because language is key. When you start speaking another people's language, you alter your morphic field, you alter your morphic resonance, and that's what cuts you off from the celestial realm. That's why we can't make contact with the high realms, because we're vibrating on a totally different frequency from what we should be vibrating on. We're vibrating basically with the Mukasu, and it's killing us. It actually destroys your cells when you break away from your how can I say, from your natural frequency, right? Because we're the children of the soul force. The Mukasu are spirit children, and they have a totally different vibratory frequency as opposed to us soul. That's why you see the difference in how we move athletically. You hear the difference in how we make music. You see the difference in how we dance differently. We have a different vibration. Our music is different. Everything about us is different. Our morphic field is different. But when you adapt to a foreign culture, you take on those energies from them, and it cuts you off. It cuts you off from the celestial realms. It also dumbs you down. This is why we're having such a hard time in European cultures, guys. Let's keep going. He goes on to say, if you allow it to enter and transform your inner voices as six ether beings do with their voices and what they call music, or their prayers, repeated phrases, invocations, affirmations, gospels, mantras, or hymns, the very sound of their voice over and over is not healthy for you, Nagato. The world of form can be changed by lights and sounds coming into your body, and their dissonant sounds create chaotic forms, beasts, demons, all from a small white orb of light, or white light, or korangis. They call it fairies. Learn to speak NoopooH, or we call Sabians, guys, in your own tones and words. It is based on optical manifestation of sonic energy and blocks out all interference of demonic tones. It's about vocalization or visualization, which equals manifestation. So sound is carried as waves of consciousness, unlike white light or that which fractures or breaks. When sound waves enter the air, they are converted to electrical impulses in the brain. So in fact, light and sound play a part in birth or life. So a living being gets its life, that is physical life, from its parents, right? Guys, so keep this in mind. What the master teacher is trying to explain, what I just said about when you adapt to foreign cultures, foreign languages, you alter your vibration, you alter what we call your morphic field. It cuts you off. We can't stress that enough. This is why the master teacher for eons has been trying to get us away from speaking English. That's why he introduced us into Semitic languages, which were really African languages. And why we stress down to speak Sabian, because it's our languages have tones. They have a certain frequency and vibration. English is flat. It's a dead language. It doesn't have no vibratory tones. Guys, this is why the Mukasu is so hell bent. One, originally when they brought us here, or when they invaded our lands in Americas, they raped our ancestors to get their spirit forces in us. What the master saying. This is why we have all these disagreeable thoughts. And we think like the Mukasu now because their spirits are in us. And you guys have to fight those negative thoughts, those negative minds. That's why we're so divided as a people. We can't get along because we're always getting uptight, or we're getting upset, or we can't deal with this person, can't deal with that person. And that's why we lost our soul force. And you have to learn how to reharness your soul force. But you can only do it through the positive mind. Again, this is the difference between being soul people, people of soul who are connected to nature, and being spirit people who are disconnected to nature. Okay, let's keep going. It goes on to say, its gender from its mother within the first 3 to 6 weeks in the mother's womb. Gender is determined by nurture or hermaphrodite or hemaphrodites. The parents of a living being are its personal creator or creators. A living being is in the image and likeness of the mother, which is XX chromosome, and the father, which is XY. 23 chromosomes from XX and 23 chromosomes from XY. The parents of a living being are its creator by the help and rules of nature. An offspring's life is inherent or inherent from its parents or parents. And sex act change of body fluids in anticipation of self-pleasure and gratitude, which is living life from beginning or intention to ending satisfaction. All reflects in the sex act. And this is how the offspring gets its rules on life and living. From the mother, after 4 births, a woman's mental state changes to a rest state. She becomes settled in life inside and may not know it outside. She becomes a true mother, or we call M-other, no longer just a female or a woman. Her 4 moon cycles is complete as nature's design. So you have a new moon, and you have a first quarter moon, then you have a full moon, then you have a last quarter moon, right? And that represents the female in harmony with nature. She becomes really connected to nature, as the master says, when she gives birth to 4 children. Now, the satellite revolving around the planet Earth for the time of a month and affecting the moment of Patanun, or the Earth. That's the name from the Earth, guys. At that time, or the fourth offspring, she no longer creates, she provides for her children and is a mate to the father of her children. If she has 4 daughters, one state of mind. If she has 4 sons, another state of mind. If she mixed them up, even another state of mind. She is the deity of the house. The father XY supplies the soul, which is the breath, the warawa, and the damam, the blood, through his banem, his sperm. And the mother, the XX chromosome, supplies the spirit person, the nafas, and bone, the azam. They supply the flesh, the jasad, the body. And the ka'a, which is spirit, and the ba'a, which is soul, and the akhak, which is ether, is from the salafu, your ancestors, linked to Panatharu, the overseers. All this is in the 9 moons, or 3 periods of the gestation period, by the rules of nature, and it's inherent the mitochondrial DNA and the nuclear DNA, the records of genetic family from the very beginning, the rules of nature, and its inherent and spontaneous powers. So, guys, just so you know, the female is important because when you're dealing with the mitochondrial DNA, goes from female to female. That's what keeps the cell alive. That's the energy of the cell, right? So when the female, when the male provides the sperm, that mitochondrial DNA doesn't transfer it because the female's mitochondrial DNA transfer, and she's the one that gives life to the child, the newborn fetus. Is coming from the mother. So that's important. Peace, Tabuna. Peace, my beloved. Let's keep going. So it goes on to say, now know this, without heat there is no humanoid life. Life itself is a burning. All life outside of the water is a burning, including the life of plants and vegetation. They receive the same, or they receive the sun's rays as their eyes through their pores, allowing sun's rays to soak in. Now humanoids receive the sun's rays through the eyes. Once activated from the spark of the sun's energy, once you open your eyes, this burning or body heat takes place from the solar plex onto the lungs and blood by the breath of life. A person inhales oxygen and exhales carbon dioxide. Carbon is a residue of burning, or an atomic number 6 on the elemental chart, or it's called C6. So carbon is a residue of burning. That is, carbon is the waste of a burnt substance or gas. When oxygen enters the lungs, it reaches the blood through the breath. When it reaches the blood, and the acids in the blood ignite the oxygen and burns it. And that burning is the heat of living energy in life. The burning generates natural electricity, or electrobiology, science of electrical phenomena in living creatures, in the form of sparks of light impulses in the brain and throughout the body nervous system. The blood transmits the light rays to the brain, then the person is able to think. Links them as mind to the mental, from where all thinking comes. To think is to feel, to see, to hear, taste, smell, and in Nagato, 4 higher senses. The burning is spontaneous by nature's rules, and the acids it used in other fluids in the body and the brain to activate emotions or actions or reactions. This relates to the DHA, which is called brain nutrient. 2/3 of the dry weight of the brain is fat, and 1/4 of that fat is DHA. From a structural point of view, DHA is an important building block for the membranes that surround brain cells. These membranes include the areas where one brain cell connects to another, or what you call brain synapses, guys. This means that DHA is involved in the transmission of information into information and then from one neuron to the next, and thus is fundamental for efficient brain function. The light world of serotonin, and then you have the night world of melatonin. Next, NoopooH, understand this about life and living. When food substance seeps through the lattice of the small intestines and reach the bloodstream, the acids in the blood ignite and burn the substance. The heat and energy produced from the burning generates pressure or blood pressure, and the blood distributes that pressure, to the various glands and nerve centers. Then the person is able to move the various parts of the physical being, and the ibab, the heart, is able to keep the blood flowing. Distributing the energy and nourishing particles throughout the living being is maintained through strength and keep the flesh replete. The burning is the emanative to all life activities of the human body, for the burning is living, is life. Therefore, when the burning stops permanently, that is life. That is the end of physical life. Then the person's body becomes cold and stiff. Now, NoopooH, open your mouth and blow your breath on the back of your dad or hand, and you will feel the inner heat from the burning. In order to determine whether life can continue after physical death of the body, it first had to be known by you what physical life is. Now that you know physical life is a burning, it is also a fact that the physical body of a living being provides the conditions of life by what it intakes. So it is a combined factor for burning. Therefore, without this condition for burning, there can be no physical life. All this means is that physical life cannot go beyond physical death of a person, because there is no condition outside the physical body that can continue the burning for a person. So in fact, when the burning stops permanently, the person loses all links to the body of the physical feelings and consciousness, and that is the end of physical life, as life is active principle of the existence of animals and plants and humans. Now, a person's ba is their higher than physical life being, and the head of the ba is the akak, which is your etheric being. And with the ba, which is the soul, emotional seat, you have ka, which is spirit, which is life or living being. All is linked to the mentality, meaning the mind. The breath of life, which is the rawa, on another levels of personality of life, which is nafas, which is spirit personality on another level. Guys, that's why I read the first book, to introduce you guys to the concept. As the master is trying to explain, we understood two concepts of two concepts of soul, right? You have the ba, which is soul, and that we taught that in ancient Kemet. And then you have the rawa, which is the breath of life. We also taught that. Then you have two concepts of the spirit, right? You have the ka'a, which we also taught in ancient Kemet, which is your plasmic, your etheric double, we called it, right? You have a spirit double of yourself. And then you have the nafas, which is the personality part of your spirit. So keep that in mind. It's very important you understand the difference, okay? So you have, we talk about here, you have the akach, you have the ba, which is soul, and the rawa, which is also soul, and you have the ka'a, which is spirit, and you have the nafas, which is spirit, okay? Now, the breath of the living and the physical, which is oxygen, on the ethereal, is also identified as 8 ether. So you have oxygen, which is O, symbol of O8, and then you have 8 ether, The gases of nature and beyond. Nature is innate, or the essential qualities of a living thing, life force, or material. Now, NoopooH, remember, you are unique. Your dark skin, dark eyes, dark hair, which attracts the sun's rays, give you energy. You are not the same as Kakasu. with their transparent skin, their light eyes, light fur, which repels the sun or it will kill them by skin disease. So they don't get the sun's energy. That is why when they wake up in the morning, open their eyes and don't receive direct sun's rays, they need a boost like coffee or other stimulants, others to stimulate their system. They need the alkaloid called caffeine, a boost of fake energy. All day they need boosts as alcohol or caffeine or other drugs or energy boosts. They smoke tobacco, cigars, pipes, cigarettes, chewing tobacco, all kinds of stimulants they need, pills of all kinds, and sodas. And they try to get you addicted on them to make you hyper or act crazy. They make legal their drugs, smokes, and alcohol, and make illegal what others use like medicinal, medical, helpful marijuana used mostly by Nagato the world over. The point being is you are not the same as they are physically. They have a spirit as all do animals, except Kakasu do not have a soul, a ba. They eat things not healthy and lots or flesh of animals and try to make you eat as they do, which is not healthy for Nagato's blood system. And food affects your burning in your body for physical life. Kakasu are descendants from the human canine flesh eaters, others of them from fur, as other beasts. They love to fight and kill. It's in their animal nature and not in yours. You are not in the same descendant line of life as they. Don't believe their history lies. You are not the same as them, nor of same family tree as they are. So don't eat what they offer you. It will make you age fast, become diseased, and die early. You cannot trust the Celtics in any way, shape, or form. You need the sun. They run from it or cover their transparent thin skin. Join on to your own African people. Eat what is grown from the soil that nature poured for your ancestors. Avoid them. This is how ancients recorded it. They said Pa Nafas, which is the spirit, is the spirit body and linked to your mental, or your Pa Ka'a, the spirit, is the body's plasmic being, the person, spirit being. When a child is born, which is the Nafas spirit, may possess that body. Those Ka'o spirits existed ever since creation. Then you have Pa Rawa, which is the soul or breath, is the inhale life force, the first breath in the physical world outside of the mother's womb. Then you have Ba, the soul or emotional breath, existed ever since creation. All four are born or grew out of Pa Akak, the etheric being which exists before creation of spirits or souls. Pa Nafas, the spirit that possesses the Kakasu, person may be good or evil or both. Pa Janae, which is the fairy, which Kakasu or Celtics or Celtics call Karangis, who enter the Kakasu's pregnant women in their 6th month as a fire orb of white light. And that is the equivalent of their soul from their Salafu ancestors called small elemental beings of Wiccan or white magic powers, goblins, and mischievous evil living creatures. These are the white orbs many see as ghosts seeking the dead, their Janeu, their fairies. They are evil and can be exorcised from the female Caucasoid who have not given over to Wiccan religions. The spirits that possess a person, whether it be Nagaru or Mukasu, can be good or evil, in some both, as they pretend to be good or saints, angels, even Messiah or God, to convert the unknowing and enter their body and use them to do wicked things. Some come in a person at times and depart from them at other times. Many drugs offered by Kakasu's doctors open people up to demon possession, even to death. This depends on a person's blood. the person's food, the person's sounds, music, voices, the person's lights, TV, cinema, and looking at evil people projecting their light images into your life, and so much more. You have to protect your being from them pretending to be human beings. They're not. They are evil, weak, and wicked, and only seek your divine Ba. And the seed from which the child sprang is a major factor in determining her or his pattern of life. And the amount of different men the female exchanges body fluids with before this child's birth. And the amount of abortions for those children aborted stay with the mother, and many enter her womb and become another child. Also, mixed parents may affect the child because of the 29 ancestors from the mother and 29 ancestors of the father and their own inner voices or spirits. Spirits will most likely take a liking to the person with the nature most relative to their own. If they were a drunk, they will try and make you a drinker, and same with lustful, they will make you a sex addict or whatever they like. They will or may also wish to torment someone's mind, and outsiders think the person is crazy or depression or even dangerous. A spirit can give fake impressions or true ones. This depends upon the nature of the spirits possessing a person. All Janeu or fairies that enter at the 6th month are wicked forces and should be cast out of a person before age 9. Therefore, in addition to protecting yourself, protect your children, protect your womb. Know who and what you kiss. A kiss is a genetic kiss. Your DNA is in your saliva, the liquid in your mouth. Know who and what you exchanging sweat with, the moisture which oozes from the skin. Know who and what you're exchanging genital body fluids. Once in your system, their salaful ancestors can take over your own ancestors. They can pass on to you their family diseases, both physical and mental. Remember, you become what you eat and drink. And remember, you must welcome evil into your life, your body, and have the power to prevent being overtaken by others if you're not in contact with your own ancestors. They will come forth and protect you if you reach out and ask them. That is our way as Africans. It's called animism, and you're called an animist. Contact your ancestors. Respect them. Stay in touch with them. They will protect you as spirit forces. Spirits or Rafu, ghosts, just as physical living people, have rules, limits, restrictions of their own, and those rules are binding by nature. Much like the watts of an electrical light, an incandescent glowing light, or artificial light produced by glowing filament or incandescent. As incandescent or incantation, magic spell, charm by man's kind made lights as are seen on screens. By them, they can send out their wicked images and incarnate or embody in flesh by incentive or arousing feelings inside of the receiver of the evil incarnating or crimson, which is blood, or red, their symbol of devil. So by their rules of spirit, if you accept them, they can enter your being and rule your emotions being. They don't have a soul of their own. Remember, the living Celtics or Celtics serve their dead, and they need you to trust them, to believe in them, to accept their images, their teachings, religions, legends, fictions. They will fade if you don't accept all they offer or give life to the image of the beast. And when you trust them in any way, they offer your soul to their dead and demon extraterrestrials they call their gods. So spirits have rules, since spirits are in fact conscious gas forces. As fluorescent light is created from trapped gas or neon atmospheric passing an electrical current through a tube containing neon. So you have many forms of light and fire. A spirit appears as a form of conscious gas forces, be they orbs, cloven tongues of fire, or like fire, or aberrations, mist, or vapor. They can enter a person at will and leave at will, so long as the entering and leaving are according to the rules and codes by which they exist. And as a prism, once the wicked white light enters, it can reflect out other colors or moods to affect those around them. Just as their wicked spirits invade people's bodies, the Celtics have and still invade other cultures, religions, lands, and pretend to be of them and take over as they did the religions of Mesopotamia, from dark-skinned people to them ruling the culture or religions, replacing all with their image, or, as it says, giving life to the image of the beast. Now they're Jews, they're Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindu. They win your trust, then invade, then take over all the world today is invaded by them, working for blood-lusting deities to cause all the world wars, the same people with new names, those of Genesis chapter 6. And that talks about their disagreeable ETs that invaded this planet and raped the women. But, for those who read that in Genesis chapter 6, we talk about it many times. Right? It says, yet this Yahweh or Lord did not destroy all of them. If you refer to Genesis chapter 6, verse 7, because the gods or Elohim stepped in, Genesis chapter 6, 13 and 14. And from this mistake was born from Noah a son of Ham, or his son Canaan. Refer to Genesis chapter 9, who was wicked. Refer to Genesis chapter 9, verse 22. The cursed seed of leopards. And refer to Leviticus chapter 13. What do they look like? Human physical ghosts. Leviticus chapter 13 explains it. They're white as snow. How do you know? It's the Canaanites. Leviticus chapter 14 verse 33 tells you that. The land of Canaan, or Canaan, was Cadmon, another name for Adam. It's now called Jerusalem, or Israel, or Palestine. Same religions, same cursed people behind all the religions of war and killing, the invaders of others. So their spirit beings invade your mind, and them as physical beings invade your land. They need to be welcomed, trusted, believed in to take over your lives and offer your soul to their deities. Guys, this is why they stress so much race mixing or miscegenation. That's how they get their spirit forces into us through the blood, guys. We used to have strict rules on that. Now, because we lost our culture, we don't know any better. But it's imperative that you guys get that word out. Our people need to understand the nature of spirit forces and what this stuff is all about. It's very important. All right, let's keep going. He goes, they come with a smile on their non-Nagaru African face to get you to trust the image of their race or subrace. Anyone, as long as they're not dark-skinned with woolly hair, they come as other than your own DNA. So they keep a link to the Ka'anu, the Canaanites, cursed seed, and as such a link to their fire deities. Once you look at their non-African image as your God or Savior or Messiah or Mahdi or angel or prophet or messenger or Pope or Cohen or Rabbi or Imam or pastor or minister or bishop or reverend or leader or teacher or idol or mentor or friend or lover, you open your whole genealogy to their genie or genies they call genius or toiletry spirits. Once you mix your genes with them and all your genetics or generic is given over to Gentiles or heathens, they promise you 3 wishes in life if you trust in them, which is a good birth, a good living, and a good afterlife. This is what this genie in a bottle promised you if you accept his dreams for you as his Negro slave. He is your master, and it lies. All lies. You're born sick, you live in abuse and die and are given over to their demons. This is what they really offer you. They use you to do their evils to others, and is why all other races hate Negroes. You work for them, fight for them, you kill for them, you lie for them, you steal for them, you entertain them, you praise them, you worship them, you sleep with them, you try to act like them, you die in his wars for them, you police his streets for them, you act for them, you sing for them, you dance for them, you cook for them, you serve them and wait on them, try to look like them, talk like them, walk like them. You even give them your all. In return, you get nothing from them but racism, hate, abuse, drugs, killing, death, fake religious beliefs, and lies of liars. You will even deny being African to be like him or others and sell your very soul to him. The fortune or misfortune becomes your fate because of the faith you put in others. You're not Arabs, you're not Chinese, you're not Indians, you're not Asiatic, and you're not Aboriginal. You are Negroid, Nagado. You're from what is called Afafre Ka'a, Africa. You're not a part of their bloodline. You're not a part of their family tree. You are unique. No other race on this planet is like you. From your outside appearance to your inside emotions, you are a deity. You are a god. You're the first and will be the last. Your faith is laid out, and only you can give it over to others and their ways. You have your own way. The fate of a person largely depends upon the spirit forces that accompany them, and that's in their seed from which the person sprang. Spirits rules provide for the evacuation of all spirits just before or at the time of death of who they possess. Yet, the spirit or spirit forces, which is 29 in all, of your own are permanent. The invaders must leave from the person's lifeless body because they are not linked to the individual's soul. Guys, so keep that in mind. All of us are being born, we're constantly being possessed by foreign spirits, guys. And that's why it's so hard for us to identify ourselves with African. That's why so many of our people see themselves or are identified with the Mukasu, because they're possessed by those spirit forces, and they don't understand why they have such a desire or such a like to be a part of the Western world and to support the Mukasu's world, and reject their African heritage, to reject their original culture, and that's because of spirits. You know, it plagues our minds. Okay, guys, I got you, eating off. All right, so let's keep going. So he goes on to say, the soul exists long before birth of the person, which is the Ba we're talking about, guys. Don't confuse the concepts of soul. You have the Ruwa. The Ruwa starts at birth, the breath of life, and then you have the Ba, which always existed. That's a part of Nun and Nuntat. It is the creation force itself, the celestial force. Let's keep going. So the soul existed long before the birth of the person, yet they cannot keep the person alive. Only the spirit can bring one back if the soul has not departed the body. If the burning stops and the spirit are still in that person, the soul as a solar being can be called to reignite the body, and no other spirit can take over. If a person exchanges body parts such as a fake heart or other body part, this does not change the soul of the person. If the body part is of an animal or other human, the spirit of that being or animal will enter the person, yet not take over if they have a soul. Just as has been proven, if a limb or finger is removed, the force field or electromagnetic field of the body of it still records the finger there and is able to be seen. That is spirit power or electrobiology at work. Guys, I don't know if you're familiar with that. They have the technology. If let's say your hand got cut off, they have these special cameras that can take a picture of let's say your cut off arm, right? And that picture can show the energy. You'll see an energy duplicate of your hand. Okay, and so it's to let you know that you have your physical body, but you also have your spirit body, guys. Now he goes on to say, as with taking in others' bloods, within 6 to 9 weeks, your own blood will replace it. Yet the spirit in their blood will remain a part of you, yet not able to take over if you have a soul. A person can live without a soul, as all animals do, yet not without a spirit, which all animals have. Kakasu do not have soul because they are bred from animals. The spirit fire is the burning, the life. The burning is what keeps the person physically alive, and the light from the burning is transmitted to the brain and is what keeps the person or animal conscious. Souls are not one spirit or life, yet may be the factor that determines what course that person's life will take and the length of their life. So, on the contrary, souls are not a person's life. The burning or body heat proves this. Yet people live by spirit and nature. The physical life of all visible, yet soul is working with the invisible you. The Ba is the invisible source of life outside of nature, because at physical death of a person, the soul possessing that person must transmitigate to another state or pass on to one of the person's blood seed to keep subsisting for the family's bloodline. It's called eternal life, that is, by the soul. Eternal life, or living forever for a person or a race, is continuous procreation or perpetual reproduction, birth of that person's family or kin. This is why Kakasu will rape or mix with Ngado, race of Africans, to sustain his own existence. You look around you today, you will see he has mixed with all other races to sustain his dying race, as he knew his 6,000 years were coming to an end, and use religion and music to interracial mix. Look at all the half-breeds all over TV and cinema. He can use them because most of them are half him and confused or without a soul. You see, no Ngado, woolly-haired, dark-skinned African person is ever dead in an ethnical sense. As long as two breeding African male and females are still alive and together, because all Ngado are of the same origin or ancestral tree. So in fact, as long as two breeding Africans live, all Negroids, living or dead, live through them. All African or Negroids are in fact the same flesh and blood with the same soul. Your ancestors, Pa Nathado, are linked to you by your own flesh and blood parents and your spirit, yet mostly by your soul. Mind your mind for the jewels of your soul. All right. Okay. So that was a lot. And that's something I highly recommend you guys rewatching this lecture again, because there's a lot of concepts that is put in here that might be new to a lot of people. And so take your time to study it, because it's imperative that you understand the difference between your soul force and a spirit force, between soul people and spirit people. So now you know, by natural nature, Ngado are soul people. They call us soul people anyway, right? But the Mukasu are spirit people who lack a soul force. And unfortunately, a lot of our people have sold their soul. Your soul is your emotional force. Your soul is what connects you to nature. Keep that in mind. Your soul force is what connects you to natural nature. That's why we as Africans always had a culture connected to nature. When you look at the Mukasu, you notice his culture is anti-nature. He's the unnatural nature person. He's not connected to nature at all. They are the artificial people. Everything they do is artificial or fake, right? And so they're not into anything natural. That's why they don't have no problem of destroying the earth through pollution, because they have no connection to the earth. They have no connection to nature. They're soulless people, right? And that's why they're just pure spirit people. They have a life force like every other animal and species on the planet. but they have no soul force, because your soul force is what connects you to nature. It's what makes you feel the harmonies and the vibrations of the earth. We as Africans have that by nature. Unfortunately, we've sold it. We've given it up for the European cultures. We've sold our souls, as they say. We've given up our connection. Now it can be restored. You can restore your soul by taking on your culture, identifying with your natural nature, identifying with your ancestors, and giving up these fake ghost spirits that our people are worshiping in these houses of religion. But, this is the choices we have to make. Okay, now, as far as questions, let's see. So eating off. Okay, I know you had questions. You had a couple questions. Would you mind asking your questions again? That way I can, be in alignment. But yeah, if you can ask your question again, eat him off, and I'll try to address it. Let's see. Let me see if I can find some of it. Okay, I think I see it. Let's see. You asked, where are we? It says, if we are until the fourth generation of our ancestors, and we take good and bad things about them, why zodiac come again? That's the teacher wrote it in the book. I'm not sure. I'm not clear on what you're asking me about the zodiac and your ancestors. Okay, so maybe I think I know what you're trying to say. Okay, so how can I say? People talk about the zodiac and they say you look depending on when you were physically born. That is your personal characteristic, right? Based on when you were physically born. Now, let's see. One of the things we teach, yes, you take on the characteristics on the timeline that you were born, but you also take on the characteristics of your ancestors. So, meaning your mother and father, you take on their spirit forces. So, because they have a personality, and you inherit that. That's why it's obvious to see how people act like their parents. They inherit traits from their mother and they inherit traits from their father. So those are the spirits of their parents. Okay. And so, that's just, what it is. So it's not just people, when they talk about the zodiac, they make you think, okay, when you were born on a certain day, this is the characteristic you have, but they don't put into consideration that you also have the characteristics of your parents. That that's important to know. So if I didn't answer that the way you was looking for it, just ask again. Ask again, and I'll try to address it. Now, there's another question asked. Let me see. Can you give more details on what the master teacher meant in the book called Genetic Kiss about the 30 U's page? Okay. What's that page? Where is that at? Page 13? Let me look that up. Let me look that up. With Genetic Kiss, we're talking about. Let's see. Yeah, that's a very important book, guys. For those, I highly recommend studying that book. Not read that book, but study that book. Genetic Kiss. Extremely crucial book. A lot of important information in there that we need to know. Page 2. Okay, so yeah, so now when you look at this chart, it says this is you, right? Then you have your mother and father, right? You come from your mother and father, so you got your X chromosome from your mother, and you got your Y chromosome from your dad. If you're a male, if you're a female, you got the X from your dad, and you got an X from your mom, right? And but those chromosomes that you got from them, it has their connection. So your mother, she's a product of her mother and father, who's a product of their mother and father, and the same thing with your dad. So the strongest part of your genetics goes back 4 generations. I repeat that. The strongest part of your genetics goes back 4 generations. So you can have the personality of 4 generations of ancestors. So you might have looked, act, and have certain traits of an ancestor that lived about 100 years ago, right? A great great grandparent, and that who's in that 4th generation. You'll have some of those traits. So your strongest personality traits are coming from those 4 generations. When you go beyond 4, the connection is weaker. You're connected to everyone in your bloodline, but the connection gets weaker once you get past 4 generations. So the personality characteristics or your personality traits are strong from those 4 generations, right? So that's kind of what we're trying to say. So I hope that helps, right? And we get our traits, our physical traits, the way we look and the way we act. We get those traits from those ancestors. Okay. Also, Edom off asks, can you please explain or talk about today the difference between terrestrial beings and celestial beings? Okay. So, in addressing that question, the difference between a terrestrial being and a celestial being, which is actually an excellent question, which is the basis of our doctrine, be honest with you. Here's the book the master teacher put out. A celestial being or a terrestrial being. The master teacher has made it very clear he had 2 types of students. Let's keep in mind we call him the master teacher because he's a spiritual master teacher. And he came to re-educate us spiritually. We've talked about this many times. Guys, I recommend anyone who hasn't watched our lecture series on who is Dr. York and his purpose. We did about 5 different lectures just explaining the master teacher and his purpose. I highly recommend, if you haven't seen those discussions, definitely check those discussions out. And if you haven't seen them in a while, definitely check it out, because we go into a lot of details about the master teacher and his purpose for those who are not familiar with him. Okay, but he came to re-educate us spiritually. So his focus was looking for those among us who are celestial, who identify with your spiritual nature. Terrestrial people are materialists, like the Caucasian. The Caucasian is a materialist. They don't have a spiritual component. They don't deal with spirituality. They deal with physical stuff. Their whole life, their whole culture is based around materialism. They don't identify as spirit. They don't identify as soul. The only people that identify that in the Caucasian world is the religious people, right? But they deal with it from a belief system and not an actual fact system. As Africans, we dealt with spirit and soul as an actual fact because we understood how to connect with our spirit and soul force. The Mukasu is spiritually ignorant, so they don't know, and that's what created religions. That's why they have belief systems and they don't have facts. it's important to understand the difference. So I repeat, the master teacher always talked about he had two types of students. He had students that were celestial beings who were spiritual by nature, and then he had students who were terrestrial, who were material. And it is the materialistic beings are the ones who come into our organization and they don't last. They eventually leave because they joined the spiritual organization and they're really materialists. And so they don't do none of the rituals. They don't do the prayers. They don't do the chants. They don't do the meditations. They don't do the concentration exercises. That's how you know whether or not you're a material being or you're a celestial being. You're someone who's trying to develop yourself spiritually, or you don't care. So it's imperative that you understand the difference between the two, right? It's very important, you know. Question from Kepre. He said, doesn't that mean that our connection to the Natharu is many, many generations away? That's an actual fact. Yes, Capre is very weak physically. Like, so let's go that again, right? So when we say the genetic kiss, we just talked about, right? Your actual personality, okay? You have traits partly from your grandfather. You can have traits from your great-great-grandfather or your great-great-great-grandmother. You have actual traits from them. You might have your toes might come from them. That genetic, you might have got that. Your toes might come from one great-grandparent. Your hands might come from, another grandparent. Your eyes may come from, another grandparent. Not just from your mother and father, but you're getting genetic traits, physical traits from these four generations. That's what we mean by that. So you're getting those physical traits and personality traits. Now, when you talk about the Natharu, your Natharu goes back thousands of years, hundreds and hundreds of generations ago. So how do we teach? You have to learn how to contact them. The only way you can learn how to contact the Natharu is through spiritual practices. By developing yourself spiritually, you now can trace your bloodline to its origin. We have that ability to do. You have the ability literally to tap into the ancestry of your bloodline. This is what the master teacher came to teach. This is what makes the master teacher, because he's the only one that's ever explained that to us and how to do it. And that's what the purpose of all our communities. The master set up our communities as spiritual centers to teach you how to develop. That's why we set up the Mugaraj, the pyramids, was designed to help you raise up spiritually. This was the importance of our whole doctrine. This what makes our doctrine so significant. It's what makes what we teach so important, right? We can't stress that enough. And so, the goal is, and that's why I say if individuals aren't working to develop themselves spiritually, then it becomes impossible to make contact with the Nathar, with our ancestors, It's just you can't do it. You can't do it. You have to. You have to develop yourself, and our whole doctrine is based around that. The master teachers always constantly telling us, you turn yourself inside out. Turn yourself inside out. That's why we do that. And that's how you make contact with your oversoul. That's the other thing. You got to connect with your oversoul, your higher spiritual self. Right? This is the goal. So, with all that being said, we're at that time. So if no one else has any more questions, we're gonna chime out because it's 9:30. p.m. and we do our 9 p.m. Prayer system. For those who are familiar with it, for those who are not, we have our prayer systems that go from, we do it at 9 a.m., we do it at 3 p.m., and we do our prayer systems at 9 p.m. for the sole purpose of us being able to link up with each other spiritually, right? And it's for helping you to develop yourself spiritually, to help you raise your vibration. And these are the practices that teaches us to make contact with our ancestors who exist on higher dimensions, as well as teaching you how to become in tune to your oversoul. So we do the prayers, the chants, and it's designed to help raise your vibration, right? As I said, and it's also to help create a certain state of consciousness. That's another reason why we do the prayer system, is to help you reach a certain state of consciousness. Now, with that being said, hold on, I'm trying to get set up here. Get it started. I needed to restart my other system. My other system went down. Hold on, guys. I lost my connection to my other system. Let's see. Question is, I see a question. Do you believe only one type of spiritual practice allows the development of conscious contact? Okay. That's an interesting question. Who's that from? Go travel, Broad. Okay. When you, how can I say this? The spiritual practices and the rituals that we follow, obviously we get that from our ancestors. So when you trace it back, these spiritual practices, it traces back to ancient Kemet. Everything we're doing, ancient Nubia, all the spiritual practices that we do are distinct as Africans. Okay, and so we had a system of how we did things in ancient Kemet, ancient Nubia. In fact, when you do research of the Twa, or the Sans tribe, the Zo people today, they still do these practices. Okay, it's very similar, and these practices are done by Sufi Muslims in Egypt and the Sudan as well, who have these spiritual practices that they do. So we have distinct rituals, okay, that we've learned and that we do as a people. So that's what we follow. And I guess if that makes any sense. So we have distinct practices as Africans. And so, like I said, all the rituals and things that we teach and do, it traces itself back. You could trace it through the Sufi orders, right? And those Sufi orders that come out of the Sudan, and those Sufi orders that come out of Egypt. And for those who do not know, the first Sufi which is the spiritual people that's connected to Islam. The first Sufi in recorded history was an Egyptian, a brother by the name of Dul Noon, and his spiritual practices, when you research him, comes out of ancient Kemet. He was born in Egypt. He was born in Kemet, and he knew the doctrine, right? He knew our doctrine, because Islam is just nothing but a they copied those rituals, they copied the spiritual practices coming out of Kemet. The prayer systems, mostly everything they do, the Hajj they do in Mecca, all that stuff. Mostly all of this stuff they copy from us, including the Christians. Copied a lot of stuff out of Kemet. The way the priests, the monks, and the nuns are set up in the Vatican, a lot of their systems and it come out of our spiritual practices out of Kemet, is what I'm saying. So I hope that helps. Now, so let's get started with our prayer systems. It's that time, and again, we're gonna be back next week. We got so much to cover still, but let's get started. Badei kala namasa wufad ko aman kasamun shalal poot pa takyud anuki jawab pa ashuk impa poot wu kala ashuk kawun jawafniya anuki kasam un impa poot wu pa poot kawun kasam un imnia anuki wahu ama pa poot wu pa poot kawun wahu ama nia naku kador naju ama kasam un impa poot Wu Khabu Aman Muskasun Naku Kador Kawen Kaleb Afaf Naku Daya Jaweb Pa Paut Aman Wase Aman Dayani Kawun Lake Bakui Jaweb Pa Paut Anuki Yababi Nafasni Pa Paut Kawun Anuki Pa Paut Kador Naku Kador Pa Paut Amul Naku Amul Lahahum Manahnu Lahahum Manahnun, Ahumata Karahum, Ahumata Karakum, Ahumata Karanun, Ahumata Jawefnia, Ahumata Nia Wu Anuki Hum, Yaye Ashuk Re'e, Asmua Jayenun, Yaye Nataru Afuknun, Anunata Mukra'ukum, Yaye Nataru Afuknun, Afuknun, Yaye Nataru Nun, Anun, Atun, Amun. Namazo Wahu, Yaye Mufaku, Yaye Yaye Notaru, Yaye Soye, Yaye Notaru, Yaye Hika, Yaye Notaru. Ankum at the pa mufaku, yayehu, yaye nataru, ankum at the pa mufaku, wu anu at the mukra'ukum, wu ankum at the musanun, yayehu, yaye nataru, aro muklasnu atum reye, yayehu, yaye nataru, namazo atu, aronhu. Yaye muktamu afunun, ankum mane yakela dudu muslafunun, wu musaunun, mane yake sawuru paba, mane yake kawuna ka'u, mane yake ata akak, mane yake kawuna basha wu damam, yaye nataru muktamunun, aro muftadnun, anhu kawun manza mane pa nataru, aro anhu, Anhu Kawun Baba Yananan, Haro Anhu, Anhu Kawun Atum Re'e, Haro Anhu, Anhu Kawun Haro, Namazo Talu, Yaye Nataru Muslafu Nun, Afut Nun Mene Pam Mujwa'u, Afut Nun Mene Gal Ha'an, Yaye Nataru Afut Nun, Mene Sayah Khayara, Afut Nun Afutniya, Afut Nun Afutniya, Yaye Nataru Nun, Namazo Rabu Pa Takmui, Nakuk Talub Takmui Bi Pa Nataru, Mene Pelain Lui Tenenu, Kalera Nam Atni at the Lehe Pa Nataru, Wu kale namaso atni at the lehe kiyat iatun laye pan atharu. Pa sawa wu patara. Panem is fa kawun. Pa sawa wu patara. Z kawuna nazul lehe enkum. Manem aspa wu masa. Ame hade en wu damal Manem muslafu kun. Wu nutaru. Aju laye nefesu kun. Afuk shene kawun kun. Pa sawa wu pataruk. Pa hadayan wu pa damal. En nun tawo en kun. Lehe penen damal wu shafe. En nun tawa en kun. Lehe tim nasui nun. En nun tawa en kun. Lehe ashukuma. En kum at the muslafu nun. En nun at the mukra ukun. En nun talub nasa kuma. En nun talub nasa kuma. En so nun kahen nataru. En so nun muslafu nun. En nun at the muspat u. Anun. Atun. Atun. Amun. Yaye nataru nun. Yaye mufta'u. Yaye nataru. Yaye atum re'e. Yaye natar. Yaye nun. Yaye natar. Yaye nun tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye ha. Yaye natar. Yaye hatat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye kak. Yaye natar. Yaye kaktat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye amun. Yaye natar. Yaye amun tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye atun. Yaye natar. Yaye shishash. Yaye natar. Yaye tafaf natat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye sabab. Yaye natar. Yaye natat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye arash tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye asar. Yaye natar. Yaye nabab tat hatat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye satak. Yaye natar. Yaye hara. Yaye natar. Yaye haptwi. Yaye natar. Yaye anaktat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye ahaharatwi. Yaye natar. Yaye nafartun. Yaye natar. Yaye menthu. Yaye natar. Yaye bapti. Yaye natar. Yaye sakam tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye hata haratat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye ba ibis. Yaye natar. Yaye patata. Yaye natar. Yaye basastat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye imhatat. Yaye natar. Yaye hu. Yaye natar. Yaye matat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye mahat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye kafaf re'e. Yaye natar. Yaye mishkinat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye oraye tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye kintimate to you. Yaye natar. Yaye hika. Yaye natar tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye ma'at. Yaye natar tat. Yaye oranen tat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye she. Yaye natar tat. Yaye sashat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye mafdat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye sabak. Yaye natar. Yaye anap. Yaye natar. Yaye khanum. Yaye natar. Yaye khanas. Yaye natar. Yaye patatanun. Yaye natar. Yaye soye. Yaye natar. Yaye haktat. Yaye natar tat. Yaye amas. Yaye natar. Yaye saratwi. Yaye natar. Ya ye Atum Re'e, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Tahutwi, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Patah Tawarat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Sakar Tat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Ha, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Naheb Ka'a, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Sakar, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Ba'a, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Akar, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Imharatat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Wapawatat, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Sakat Hatap Tat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Meritat Sikar Tat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Suye Tat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Garatat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Asat Inu, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Bahatat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Khanam Tat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Manak Tat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Khanam, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Mahatwi, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Kabebsin and Afaf, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Damata Afaf, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Meritat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Nasat, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Imdadat Tat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Nakakbatat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Sakatat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Anaktat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Dadad, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Tum, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Wahoo, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Yasas, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Anak, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Afnuit, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Satat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Sakatwi, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Immat, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Nana, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Imnuit, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Imsataktwi, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Mudaltat, Ya ye Nathar Tat, Ya ye Rahashafaf, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Maratwi, Ya ye Nathar, Ya ye Amun Re'e, Ya ye Nathar, Yehu Anun Ata Khaled Jawef Pa'ut Ahnun Re'e Ahtun Re'e Ahtun Re'e Ahmun Re'e Ye'un Amun 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 Amun. Chapter 4. Okay, for those who are not familiar with our prayer systems, again, the reason why we do it is for our own spiritual development, our own spiritual edification. It's designed. We do the prayers, the chants. It's designed to help raise your vibration. It's designed to refocus your attention to the celestial realm, to visualizing and seeing yourself making contact with your ancestors, the Natharu. This is the whole purpose of it. And so after you go through that prayer system, we go into like a chanting, and then after the chanting, you're supposed to go into a meditative state. So after I finish chanting Amun, right? Because now the body is vibrating, your energy is moving, is fluctuating at a high rate, right? You raising your frequency. Now that's the perfect time to go into that meditative state, so to now process and then take in what we call this affirmation, celestial energy, or what we call Sakhem energy into the body. You're able to process that energy, and this is what helps you. It helps one expand your consciousness, and it helps you begin to learn how to make contact with your higher self and your ancestors. So this is all a part of the rituals. It's a process. It's a process. I always tell people it takes anywhere to 3 to 9 months of consistency, day in, day out, where you really begin to see results. You will see results. I guarantee it. If for those who are sincere, for those who approach this with a positive mind, again, negativity cuts the flow. Remember that, guys. The negative mind cuts the flow. Anger, anxiety, frustration, fear, right? Doubt. All of those things cuts those flows. It cuts the connections. Whenever you have those types of emotions, it's like an adverse energy. Okay? So keep that in mind. All right. On that note, it's about that time. We have fun. And we will be back next week. Just keep you guys reminder that Fridays we do the NoopooH News, right? With NoopooH News update. So we'll have a NoopooH News update for this coming Friday to keep you guys up to date. And guys, for those who are not familiar with it, we put that challenge out. The 6 degrees of separation. We asking you guys to commit to recruiting one person to Wu-Sabat. For those of you who identify yourselves as Sabians, how else are we going to grow if we don't commit to recruiting? And I just ask you guys to recruit one person, and teach that one person to recruit one person. This is how we grow. This is how we change our conditions, right? Each one, teach one. So I've been dedicating myself here to try to help those who are in need of right knowledge, and I ask everyone to do the same, right? Recruit one person, and teach that one person, to do the same. And I will say this to help you guys in recruiting. First thing you want to look for is a positive mind. Okay, it's hard to help anyone who's stuck in that negative mind. So that's the first thing you got to help them. The second thing, you got to teach them what Leviathan is, guys. So if you're not skilled in explaining that, study the lectures that we talk about Leviathan. Read the books. They got to understand what Leviathan, because once they understand what Leviathan is, then it's easy for them to understand why Panababyanana is unique, why he's special, and why he's significant, because our people don't realize why he's so significant. He's the only one who's ever even explained what Leviathan is to us. So it's imperative that people understand what Leviathan is. Study those lectures that we put out to try to explain that in detail, right? And this is what opens the door to explain why the master teacher is significant, why he's important. And once you explain why he's important, the other thing they need to understand was what is resurrection. This is a principle that goes back to ancient Kemet. We lost this knowledge. Our people must know again what resurrection is, that we've been put under the spell of Leviathan for the past 6,000 years. And only through the resurrection can we restore our divine mind. So with that being said, I hope you guys commit to the challenge. I hope you guys commit to one person, recruiting one person into this information. Just one. And teach that one person to recruit one person. Guys, we would be amazed how we would grow significantly if everyone take that challenge. But until then, much peace, much love, and we'll keep it moving.